while we have $3 million that has traditionally been allocated by the legislature through the Live Like Bella Pediatric Cancer Research Initiative, the Florida Cancer Innovation Fund is also currently prioritizing projects that focus on combating the terrible cancers that affect our children, and more can be done to do that. We hope through these projects funded by our more competitive grant process and the new incubator with an initial focus on pediatric cancer, we will create more opportunities for kids to access cutting-edge care in our state. So I'm excited about the opportunities here. I want to thank the First Lady for spearheading so much of this. I want to thank the Florida Department of Health for being involved, Surgeon General Joe Latipo. Also want to thank members of the Florida legislature who really have represented a strong commitment to this issue, and particularly after the First Lady was going through her ordeal, just organically did more without us even having to request any of that. So thank you for doing that, and I know that this is going to make a difference for people, not just in Florida, but this has ripple effects beyond the Sunshine State. With that, we're going to hear from our speakers, and so our first speaker is our great First Lady and my wife.
Well, good to be here. Thank you so much for what you guys have done to help support this over the years. It means the world being able to stand here now after 6 rounds of chemotherapy, 6 weeks of radiation, 3 surgeries and counting. And here I am, stronger and better than ever, which I hope gives a lot of people hope. So we're just getting warmed up, obviously, as it pertains to pediatrics, and we're doing a lot of great things. You know, the Cancer Collaborative has been a really monumental thing for the state of Florida, right? So we really have 5 main components, and when the collaboration was started, one of which is data. I think it was one of the most important things. Prior to this initiative, there was really a 2-year lag as it pertained to the data coming into our agencies to understand what are the occurrence, what are the reoccurrence rates, can we do anything in the hospital systems to identify if maybe there's one cancer in one part of the state, what can we do to react and use our resources to best help people? The other thing is, in this collaborative, is looking at the best practices. So, and I was actually a beneficiary of this because there was a certain procedure that was done on me that I come to find out isn't available to everybody across the state, but it made my quality of life so much better. And so we really wanted to work to say, okay, let's tear down the walls and the competitive walls of the hospital systems. So if something is really working well in hospital system A, man, hospital system B, C, D, and F should all know that, so the patients have better outcomes and better quality of care. The funding, thank you for what the legislature has done, what the governor's done in his recommended budget to be able to appropriate the funding, but hold ourselves accountable to outcomes. And when you look now currently at the funding model, the majority of the funds, all of the funds, go to the Nationally Accredited Cancer Institute, which they're doing really good things, right? But that's only 10% of the population as it pertains to cancer diagnoses. 90% of the people battling cancer across the state aren't able to access the benefits of those funds to give them better quality of care and better outcomes. So we believe we should look at a competitive model, see who's doing the best work, and help people across the state accordingly. Another thing this collaboration is looking at are the causes. We know some things, right, like smoking, and we don't want to do that, but there are other things that we're learning every day. Just recently, it was the Federal Surgeon General that came out that said that there is a significant link between cancer and alcohol. So here's the deal. You want to go drink, fine. However, people need to know the implications and ramifications of what some of this is doing to their body and be able to be empowered to make the best decisions for themselves and also for their loved ones. So understanding, how do we get in front of it? Instead of waiting, being told, oh, it's just in your genes, that's going to happen, that's just life. No, there are things that you can do prior to all of that with lifestyle and choices to improve your ability to be able to overcome or to ward off cancer altogether. And then that leads me to one of my favorite is the Innovation Fund. This is really a great investment from the legislature, again, looking at the outcomes and the accountability, right? So you see there are a lot of great technologies, a lot of great procedures, but sometimes they don't have professional grant writers. It's not easy for them to be able to find this and where do I go? And the other thing we're doing that's really spectacular is we're not just doing this with the fiscal year. You wait a year, you get a bunch of applications, and then they go out. We're doing this quarterly. because we understand we're at war with cancer. We don't have time to wait for a funding cycle. We need to get it out now to help people. And so now you can see with this second tranche of innovation funds going out, we just opened the application for a third tranche to go out there, so we can see what are some of the interventions that are making a huge difference. And sometimes there are things out there that might not have huge financial windfalls for somebody. They might be off-label. They might be something that are in generic form. But if they're showing promise, man, let's invest in that and let's help the people of this state as quickly as possible. So that's why I'm very honored and privileged to be here to be a part of this. I never thought in a million years that I would ever have a piece of legislation named after me. I didn't really want cancer to be named after Casey DeSantis, but you know, when God gives you an opportunity to be able to do something, what do you do with it? And it is a privilege and it is an honor to fight for families who are battling cancer and for those who are currently in the fight. And know this, if I can stand here and I can fight for you, know that there is hope, and fight for yourself and fight for your loved ones. So God bless you. Thank you very much. And I'll have our great president come up.
I was going to say Lieutenant Governor because that's 6 years of practice.
I know. Old habits die hard. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. First Lady Casey DeSantis, you are a tough act to follow. Thank you so much for your advocacy and your passion on this issue. I want to also thank our legislative leaders, our local mayors that are here, and those of you that are in the fight each and every day. And we know here at FIU, we're so proud to be a partner in that fight because, as you know, FIU is one of the state's preeminent universities. We're top 50 in terms of public universities across the country. We're #1 in terms of making sure that we have social mobility for our students, top 15 most innovative, top 20 in terms of economic return on investment. But all of that, all those rankings are important, and I'm proud to tout them. But one of the things that I think we really need to focus on today in particular is the fact that we have become a major research institution. We have seen our research expenditures grow over $1 billion in the last 5 years, and I'm here to tell you that we are just getting started. And that's why I'm so excited. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to highlight the work of Dr. Azam. You're going to hear from her in just a few minutes, and what she and her associates are doing in the lab, in labs like this one, is truly remarkable. Today's announcement is, of course, going to allow us to continue to build on that work. These funds allow us to strengthen our cutting-edge research, make sure that we're developing technologies that are invented right here in our labs, and it's going to permeate across this county to make sure that patients are the beneficiaries. We value public-private partnerships, and just recently we announced our affiliation with Nicholas Children's Hospital. Very excited about that, and we continue to work with our partners in the community. And the work that Dr. Azam and her team are doing is truly unique. First of its kind clinical trials utilizing functional precision medicine, giving people hope. And I know the First Lady talked about that, and she really is the embodiment of manifesting that hope when you're looking at cancer diagnosis. And so we're going to see all kinds of life-saving treatments, but it's not just a treatment in the lab. It's how it affects lives, our daughters, our sons, our parents. So I'm really excited that FIU gets to highlight some of the important work that they're doing today. And I know that Dr. Azam is going to talk about the importance of the legislative investment. Just a couple of years ago, she received $2 million to acquire state-of-the-art equipment to increase the speed and efficiency in which she can identify personalized options and treatment. And so again, we're so thankful that the Governor and the First Lady would come to recognize FIU as a really important partner in this fight. And I just want to thank everyone for being here, and I'm certain that we're going to have opportunities to even grow further in terms of what we're doing for patients and saving lives for Floridians. So thank you both.
Okay, Doctor.
Good morning. It's an absolute honor to welcome Governor and First Lady DeSantis to our Stemple Research Labs. I also want to welcome our new FIU interim president, Jeanette Nuñez. It's really an absolute pleasure to get to personally thank you both for the incredible support that we received from the state of Florida. I can proudly say that today, Florida is leading the nation in functional precision oncology. Yeah. So we, a few months ago, actually, we were standing here announcing the results of a study that is first in the world to use a novel functional precision medicine approach to guide treatments for children with advanced cancers. This represents a major shift in how we treat cancers. Instead of guessing which drugs might work, we test drugs directly on a patient's tumor to basically tailor treatment and make sure treatment is tailored to that patient's individual biology. And remarkably, 83% of children that were guided by our approach showed significant improvements. Obviously, this study wouldn't have taken place without funding from the Florida Department of Health, the Live Like Bella Pediatric Cancer Research Initiative, and even strong legislative support allowed us to acquire state-of-the-art robotic instrumentation, like this Access Workstation behind you, allows us to dispense drugs in nanoliters through sound, so we can really scale up the process of drug testing. And then today, I'm thrilled to hear that there will be funding given to a company, a startup, First Ascent Biomedical, which is taking technology invented here in our labs, integrate it with artificial intelligence, and the funds will be used to make this technology accessible to cancer patients that need it the most here in the state of Florida and nationwide. So I want to mention that the private-public partnership between FIU and First Ascent is a powerful testament to how the state of Florida is catalyzing innovations like these that have potential to saving lives. So thank you so much for your support.
Okay. Are you going to accept this on behalf or who? Okay. All right, why don't we come over here
Awesome.
and do a photo.
First
Is
Ascent.
anyone else?
Yes, First Ascent, Noah.
All right, so this is the first award. 2 million smackers.
You guys stand here. Yeah.
First Ascent.
Hi, how are you? AI expert? Okay,
And
great.
you want to say a quick word about what you guys are going to use this for?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Noah Burlow, Chief Technology Officer of First Ascent. This money is going to be used to bring our individualized cancer treatment approach to patients throughout Florida. This will be children facing cancer, adults facing cancer. Everyone who has failed the standard of care needs a new individualized treatment. This will be combining Dr. Azam's drug sensitivity testing that tests drugs on live patient cancer cells, and the addition of artificial intelligence to understand why the drugs are working and what will best treat that individual patient. So this is going to be something that is directly impacting every patient in Florida that needs it.
Great. All right, let's smile and get this on the book. All right, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck. Yep. Well, we're excited. I mean, I think that our view is let's innovate. When people are in these predicaments, whether it's a parent having to make decisions on behalf of a child or whether it's just adult cancer, if there are new possibilities out there that are more experimental, you should have a right to do that if you want. And we want to be able to provide people with as many options to be able to handle this as they possibly can. We're also going to be engaging in some other issues. There's some stuff that's going to be before the legislature. I mean, for example, we really led the country in saying during COVID, we are not going to force you to take mRNA shots. A lot of people didn't want them. Many people had COVID. That protection is actually sunsetting on June 1st, so we're going to work to make sure we make those protections permanent and do other things that I think are going to be a part of a really robust Patients' Bill of Rights. So stay tuned on that. We're going to have a lot of great announcements along those lines with First Lady will be involved. Dr. Latipo will be involved. Joe Latipo is the top Surgeon General in the United States, in my opinion, with what he's done. I think he's really, really strong. He focuses on the evidence, and he does not just accept narratives that are not actually proven through clinical trials and other different ways. I think you're now going to start seeing that more and more federally, because when we were doing COVID, I mean, CDC would throw down these studies that were just farcical. They were not scientifically rigorous. There was no control groups. It's like, oh, well, there were, a barber had 6 people come in and 3 of them got COVID, and so therefore don't get your hair cut. It's like, wait a minute, is that the standard that we're now having? It was really an embarrassment what was going on during those years, and they basically put their ideology and their desire to further a narrative over evidence-based. And so you now see situations where the CDC put COVID mRNA shots for the childhood schedule. These babies, they want to do it. Now, I've looked at this. There's not a basis to put that on the schedule. And parents know that. Very few parents do that. And so then it's like, okay, if you're telling me this, we know there's not a basis for it. What else are you telling me? And why should I believe any of that stuff? So I think they have a huge credibility problem. And when we were at the White House last week, I was able to speak with a number of cabinet secretaries. I was able to speak with RFK Jr., who I've known before this because, he was involved in exposing Fauci just like we were in Florida all those years. And we worked together on that. But they are going to really overhaul, I think, a lot of the rot there. And I think what comes out is going to be based on evidence and not based on whatever kind of the conventional wisdom may be. There was a lot of damage done during those years. And so for Florida, we just, I think Joe's led the charge. We've wanted to support things that are evidence-based. We think that makes a difference. I think the cancer work that's going on here, I think they're doing it the right way. And I think that's something that's really significant. Okay, do we got any questions?
Local 10 News for the First Lady. Lots of committee members are wondering if you can confirm whether or not you are exploring a run for governor, and if so, what your
I'll let you take that. Go ahead.
Oh, shoot.
And if so, what your pitch is to voters about your qualifications.
Well, I would say one thing, to quote the late, great Yogi Berra: when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
You guys can read in that what you want. Look, I mean, I think that I've had people coming up to me for years begging to get her in the fray because I think you see with her presentation. I mean, she's passionate, she's articulate, she's smart, she's got rock solid values. I remember Rush Limbaugh, late great friend of mine, and he was always upset because he thought that the spouses pulled the office holder to the left. And he said, with Casey, I don't have to worry about that. She's more conservative than you. And I think what she's done on this has been really inspirational. For just how she handled the cancer has been inspirational to people. But then to parlay that into programs that are actually helping people and saving lives is extraordinary. She's also came in as First Lady and tackled things like behavioral health. That is not an easy subject. But if you look at what we've done, there's been huge progress that have been made, progress that's been made on opioids and other types of substance abuse. And then, as if that's not enough, she actually tackles one of the thorniest issues, which is child welfare, challenging the Great Society and the War on Poverty's conception of how you deliver these services by launching Hope Florida, which says government's not the answer. Government can facilitate with connections to faith-based groups, to private groups, businesses, even interested people in the community. And when you get folks in need connected with those arteries in our society, they end up having a pathway to independence. And I think it's been tens of thousands of people who've been taken off, 30,000 people who've been taken off means-tested welfare in Florida because they're now independent. And that was supposed to be the goal of this. Instead of creating dependency, which is what's happened for many decades, Florida has shown a pathway to do that. And as much as as governor, I can take credit for that because it's my administration. I get blamed anytime anything isn't good. So, right. But I had really, this was her conception to do this. And I think it has the potential as we expand this concept to other parts of government. It has a chance to completely upend how these things have been done. And there's states that come to Florida and they ask, how do we do Hope Florida in Iowa or in some of these other places? And so you're seeing it replicated now. Now there's some states that are very liberal that as soon as you tell them that you're welcoming in the faith-based community, then they say they can't do it, which to me is absurd, but that's how they think, right? if you're in need and, you're a single mom with a 6-month-old and you get evicted from your apartment and you need a shelter, so what if it's a church? Like I think people would want that. But yet the leftist bureaucrats say, oh, you can't have the faith-based community involved. And in Florida, we've got massive numbers of churches, synagogues, people that want to be in this fight to actually help people. And yes, obviously they're in the business of also soul craft as well, but we welcome that and we think that that's good. So that's been really, really significant. So I can't think of, there's people that serve a lifetime in different public capacities who probably couldn't say that they've had such an impact with some of these programs. And she did the Hope Florida. That was her thing. She came to me with it. We had a lot of people vetting it in our office, and we've run with it. Now we're applying it to Veterans Affairs. Because, you go in, I was up in Washington, we met with the new Secretary of the VA. He's a former colleague of mine, and he's a good guy, Doug Collins. I told him, I said, your problem is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is what's killed the VA. Bureaucracy is what fails the veterans, and you got to cut through that. And he gets it, but it's easier said than done, right? Well, what are we doing in Florida? We're recognizing our VA isn't as bureaucratic, but we're recognizing, okay, bureaucracy is not going to be the answer. So the vision is you have the portal like they use with children and families, and who will be plugged into the portal? All these veterans groups. We've got all these private veterans groups, mental health, service dogs, employment, you name it. In Florida, we're rich in this. So you have that. You also have traditional charities that may want to be involved. You have businesses, corporations that want to be involved helping veterans. And then you have individuals that can plug into the portal. And the thing is, veterans have a tough time. We know the statistics on suicide. We know that there's an invisible cost of being in armed conflict that we haven't always done a great job of recognizing. And it could be enough of just, veterans having difficulty, someone volunteers just to go say, you know what, I want to take you to lunch. I care about you, man, and let's do it. That could avert things as well. So this is a very exciting model. We're going to be doing more on this in the ensuing years. But when you do that, some people are show horses and they babble and nothing ever gets done. And then some people are workhorses. When I look at this stuff, I'm like, what are you actually delivering? What are you getting done? That's what matters. And I think Florida has been the #1 example of actually getting this stuff done. Just think about this whole, I saw a little blurb about the whole thing with the mutilation where they're sex changing on the kids. We in Florida, initially through our health, we said no, that's not acceptable. But the legislature came in and they codified that in law. President Trump did the executive order on that. Has Congress done anything to codify it? No, they haven't done anything. Have they done anything to codify any of these executive orders? No. They spent a lot of time going on TV talking, but what are they actually doing? You look at Florida, we're spending less money this fiscal year than we did last year. I don't know there's many states that can say that they're doing that, but certainly the federal government with what they just passed in this budget. It's like the media will say this. The media, like on the left, are saying, oh, Medicaid. There's nothing in the budget. I didn't see the word Medicaid. Republicans, oh, these tax cuts. I didn't see that in there either. It basically puts spending forecasts and spending levels. In 2034, that budget that passed forecasts the national debt to be $56 trillion. So it was $5.6 trillion 25 years ago. And then they're saying 10 years from now, 35 years into this century, it's going to be $56 trillion. In Florida, the legislature here, they've appropriated funding for us to retire debt early at a discount where we're saving on interest costs. So Florida's total debt from the 1840s to the present, we've been able to pay off 41% of that, and we'll continue to do that over the next 2 years. That's what you call action. That's what you call getting the job done. So show me what you're doing, and I think that whether it's the cancer innovation, whether it's the behavioral health, whether it's the Hope Florida, there's been action and there's been results, and that's why you get into this stuff. Yes.
Hi, Olivia DeVenti with 7 News. I'd like to know your thoughts on the recent NOAA firings, and how do you believe that they will affect the upcoming hurricane
Is that
season?
with the National Weather Service?
Yes.
I don't know the details on it, and I'm somebody that's been critical of a lot of federal agencies over the years, I think you could say, and well deserved. But I will say, I think that the National Hurricane Center down here in Miami has done an admirable job. They don't always get it right, but they've gotten some ones pretty doggone good in more recent years. And I know those folks work really hard. I think what you're going to see on some of this, I'm a big supporter of the DOGE effort. I think you're just going to see, there's certain legal authorities, whether you're probationary or not, and I think that they kind of started broad, but I think you're going to see, it be okay with the National Hurricane Center. I really do, because I know it's an important part of what we do. It's not easy to forecast these things, but I'll tell you, the last two hurricanes, the Helene, they got that very good, and Milton, they got pretty doggone good too. So that's helpful. I mean, as a leader who's got to manage this stuff, when you have a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane out there, you've got to make decisions. Local emergency managers have to make decisions about how do you move people. Do you tell them to go? Because, there's a risk with evacuation, too. I mean, people act like, everyone should just evacuate. No, that's actually not accurate. But if you're in a danger area, then they may call on you to do that. How do you manage all this stuff? And having the ability to have some good data, be able to let them synthesize these models, that's a very, very helpful thing to do. So I think they've done a good job. We've appreciated working with them. Clearly, when you start talking about Florida, hurricane season is just kind of our ground zero for emergency situations. We know that. We understand that. And we do all we can to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the people. Yes?
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Mrs. DeSantis, we were just looking for some clarity as to whether the fork in the road comment means you're running for governor.
I think she's leaving that to imagination and to start talking about good old Yogi Berra, because he had a lot of very perceptive comments, and I just remember when they were in kind of the doldrums with Major League Baseball. There wasn't as much fan interest. I don't think the Yankees were doing as well that year. And he said, if people don't want to come to the ballpark, no one's going to stop them. And that's just kind of the nature of it, right? Yes.
President, handling DOGE, and at the state level, are you going to be focusing on agencies like the Department of Education, both at the state level and also in higher education? And then the bigger question is your wife a better golfer than you?
Well, we did meet on the driving range, and the thing was at the time, she had a very good swing, because you could tell if someone can get through it. She was doing it. She wasn't hitting it great, but I thought she was probably like a pretty skilled golfer, and she was just kind of picking it up. So was I, really. I was in the Navy. I'd been a baseball player my whole life, and then we went out, and we've had some good battles over the years. I'd say now we're more focused on getting our kids through 9 holes. We've got a 4-year-old who can maybe go 1 or 2 holes. Our 6-year-old Mason can go 9, and our 8-year-old, she can go 9, but she doesn't always want to. So managing that, I think, is really, really difficult. Now, on the DOGE thing, universities, yes, absolutely. We are DOGing the Florida university system, and the reason is because there's been a massive increase in funding, which I've supported, the legislature's provided, and I think it's good, and I think they've done a lot of good things with it. But I also know that nationally, if you go back 30 years, the #1 growth has been administrative staff. And I think that that's something that we need to make sure isn't getting out of hand here. I also want to see, we're the first state in the country to eliminate DE&I. I think people now realize that was discriminatory. That's not the way you go about doing this stuff. So DEI office is closed at University of Florida. But then where do those employees go? Are they burrowing into other parts and then doing it by another name? Or have you really eliminated it, not just superficially? So we are going to do the universities. I think it's really important. We're also, we're here talking about AI being used for treating cancer. One of the things I think that Elon has done, which has been different than what we've done thus far, because we audit all this stuff as a matter of course. These contracts in Florida, they go through our budget office. If there's a DEI or something, we pull it back. But using artificial intelligence to monitor the way the payments are being made and everything, that could potentially, really help our efforts. So we're going to unleash the power of AI. We're going to do a lot technology focused in how we hold our own state agencies accountable, and I think that's really important. But probably the biggest piece of this and there's an initial thing we can do, but we probably are going to need support from the legislature is, and there's precedent for this because we do have the ability to go in and get certain information from local governments, but we really do need to doge local governments, because if you look at what's happened in Florida, our property values have exploded, and what does that mean? It means you pay more property taxes. So you buy a house, I mean, people that bought a house for $400,000 in Miami 10 years ago, now they're telling you it's worth $1 million. First of all, you don't know how much the house is worth until someone offers you that and there's a transaction. But even if you're homesteaded, your property taxes are going up. How is the budgets done? You know, I saw the thing, I think it was Broward, over the last 5 years, their budget's up 82%. But the population hasn't actually gone up. So how does that work? And what's going on there? So we want to be able to have a DOGE unit, and it's not going to be a permanent agency, but for the next, I think it should sunset July 4th, 2026 for our 250th anniversary, and go in and identify these things. Interestingly, there's some pretty big counties that have had a change in composition on their county commissions recently, who they're volunteering. They're like, we want to be DOGE. Now, I know a lot of them are not going to want to be DOGE, don't get me wrong, but some of them have wanted to do it because they know that there's ways to be able to do this. And I just don't think there's as much scrutiny on what goes on. So we're gonna be hopefully be able to get some legislation to be able to get that process going. So, and here's the thing. We announced this the other day, and some people were saying, well, Florida is one of the least states that needs it because, you look, we have the lowest number of state government employees per capita in the entire country. We have the lowest per capita debt in the entire country. Of course, we have no income tax. Our budget, even though we have millions of more people than New York State, is less than half of New York's budget. And so we do a good job. And, you know, the legislature's done a good job. You know, I've had to prune here or there. It's just what you do, right? But we've almost quadrupled our state's rainy day fund just since I've been governor. It was, I think, $1.3 billion. Now it's going to end up probably being closer to $5 billion. I think we're actually running into statutorily. We can't even put any more into it pretty soon. So that's a really good thing. And some people say, well, why? We need to worry about this. We need to worry about that. No, you always can do better. And so that's why we wanted to do the DOGE. But we definitely think on local governments, we need to do it. And it will parlay into the debate about, you know, how much is local government spending or not? Because what they'll say is like, oh, well, this is all for things that we all want, like law enforcement or whatever. Yeah, fine, okay, but then what about this? What about this? And there's always ways to reduce the bloat. But it will go into this debate about, you know, people getting pinched on these property taxes. I think it's really, especially down here, you have seniors on fixed incomes. Their homes are getting assessed so much more now all of a sudden, and they're having to pay, and our homestead is too weak. Honestly, you need a much stronger homestead exemption. So that's something that's really been pinching. And we'll see what happens overall with inflation. I think the fact is the last quarter of Biden's administration, inflation accelerated. That happened. And so is that going to taper off? Where is that going to take us? Obviously, there's some headwinds with these eggs and other things that are happening that aren't the result of government policy, but these are things that you have to deal with. But I think people are getting pinched, and I want to help them.
Local governments, is that like Tallahassee bigfooting on local governments? I mean, folks here vote for people to represent them.
It's not bigfooting. I mean, we have under Florida statutes, and I'll actually be acting pursuant to this relatively soon, and we'll give everyone a heads up when we do. You know, there are things. I have constitutional authority in the Florida Constitution to request information from every entity in this state, municipal, county, and state agencies, and constitutionally, they have to provide that. So if we want the financial, we can do it. Now, I would rather have tech-savvy people be able to just go in and handle that because I think they do a better job. But we already have constitutional authority. We have statutory authority to get answers to a series of enumerated issues with how they're running their local government. So it's not anything beyond what's already set out in statute and in the Constitution. I think the wrinkle is a DOGE team is going to be IT focused. They're going to be focused on using artificial intelligence, and that is something that I think will make a difference. I think it'll be very eye-opening when you do it. But any of the counties I know we've heard from a combo that want to have this voluntarily. We'll send a team of tech-savvy people down, do it. And honestly, I would want that too, because if I have people go into one of our departments and they say, hey, we found $3 million worth of contracts that maybe we can renegotiate or something, I'd be like, do it. Now, we have done that as a matter of course a lot. We've negotiated so much, renegotiated and refinanced so much of our debt. Part of the reason we've been able to pay off so much debt is because we've refinanced when rates were low. Now it's a little bit different because rates are a lot higher, but you go back 4 or 5 years, rates were almost nothing. We did massive savings. So if you look at from the refinancing to the accelerated debt program that we enacted with the legislature, I mean, we've probably saved, certainly hundreds of millions of dollars with debt, but maybe even over $1 billion over these last 4 or 5 years. I can ask Ben Watkins to provide numbers, but I'm pretty sure you could probably get over $1 billion. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back soon. God bless.